It's a non-profit Linux foundation that focuses on open source tools. CNCG Riyadh is a Riyadh-based chapter of CNCF. We had our previous sessions on Introduction to Hem by Akanksha Srivastava, then another on Unleashing the Potential of Platform Engineering and Internal Developer Journey by Ahmad Babas, and we got an overwhelming feedback to these. And today it's our third session, and at this moment, I would like to extend my gratitude towards our event sponsor, Stack Genie, a platform management service provider based in the UK and USA. I would like to welcome our speaker, Saleh. I also welcome all the organizers and all other guests who have joined for this event. So, before moving on to today's topic, the Kubestronaut Journey, we have with us Saleh, first Kubestronaut in Saudi Arabia, DevOps Engineering Manager at FourPrinciples. He will guide you through his journey to achieving the prestigious title of Kubestronaut by obtaining all 5 Kubernetes certifications like CKA, CKAD, CKS, KCSA, and KCNA. Saleh will share his preparation strategies, insights, tips, and best practices to help you on your path to becoming a Kubestronaut. Hereby, I welcome Saleh for the talk. I welcome you, Saleh.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So I appreciate that everyone has made the effort to join in this session. Thank you all. I hope that you are going to learn a thing or two in this session. It's a bit tough to actually prepare a session for different kinds of people in terms of um, people who are already midway through the journey of Kubestronaut, and also the people who are still didn't start yet getting these certifications. So I'm going to start by presenting a small presentation that tries to cover many topics, and as my friend said here, to share my learning strategies and my methods, trying to incorporate this learning journey into my daily work in order to actually achieve something along with our daily work. So I'll start by sharing my screen, as I said. So this presentation is broken into 4 sections. I'll start with the introduction, a humble introduction for me, Saleh, as well as the 3 other sections, study guide and tips, as well as the Kubernetes certifications. This section is the meat of this presentation, where I would speak about each and every certification and give my recommendations regarding the courses themselves, as well as the preparation guides. And the 4th one is a simple one regarding before taking any exam of these 5, in terms of preparation, the environment itself, as well as some other tips. So I would start with the introduction. This is me, Saleh Alshamlan. I have a bachelor degree in software engineering from King Saud University. I'm a Kubestronaut as well, obviously. 3rd thing is that I'm currently a DevOps Engineering Manager at FourPrinciples, and you can find the rest of the information on LinkedIn. The other section, I believe this is an important one. It's a study guide and tips. These are my general recommendations in terms of learning in general, not just Kubestronaut. So you need to use these methods into any certificate, whether within CNCF or outside of CNCF, like many other certification providers. So the first one is something that I repeat many times to many people, is that you need to dedicate time for learning, and you make it a part of your daily work. You can start by 15 minutes to an hour. What I mean by this is that you cannot just cram learning into the weekend, because you're going to come exhausted from 5 days of work, and then you cannot incorporate learning into your daily work after you come back from work, because you're going to be exhausted already, and it's a bit tough to learn something new after 8 hours or even more from working. So you need to actually make the time. You need to specify, let's say, first 15 minutes of every day, trying to learn something new, or starting with a specific course, and documenting your learning journey, because it's not going to be one certification, it's one of many. So you're supposed to find time for it as a daily exercise, just like workout and many other things. The second one is that you need to invest in Kubernetes documentation. This is an essential part. Kubernetes documentation will stay with you in all of these five certifications. You're gonna, I mean, if you do well in terms of reading through the documentation and applying your knowledge practically, you do well in all five. You're gonna need Kubernetes documentation in all of them. And some would say, well, obviously you need Kubernetes documentation. I would respond by saying that some certificates, just like CKS, would require you to know things outside of Kubernetes documentation. So it's not the only one, but it's an essential part, especially when you come to taking KCNA and KCSA. It's going to be a bit tough to prepare because it's a theoretical exam. It's not going to be a practical exam, just like CKS, CKA, and CKAD. Uh, as I said, you're going to make it part of your reading. For example, instead of scrolling through social media, which is something that wastes your time, you can dedicate 20% of this time by reading through Kubernetes documentation. You can just read through it using your mobile because the mobile version is actually pretty good. And you can just take section by section. You can go through it. It gets updated every once in a while with every release. You can see the deprecated resources, etc. The third one is a very interesting one and a fun one. It doesn't take much of your time. You can do it, especially if you have a daily commute. It is listening to Kubernetes podcast. I mean, you can't. I mean, the first time I knew about Kubestronaut is through Kubernetes podcast and many other things like Kubernetes releases. Sometimes they meet with, let's say, very knowledgeable people, people who created many essential components in Kubernetes. And as I said previously, you're going to stay updated with everything regarding Kubernetes because sometimes you need to learn about trends. Sometimes there are tools that serve your purposes, and it's a bit tough to know about once if you are disconnected from this community. You can have landscape.cncf.io opened every day, go through the tools that are provided, etc. The other point is you need to invest in mastering Vim. You're going to need Vim in CKA, CKAD, CKS. You can actually use Vim Tutor. Vim Tutor. It's a tutorial in how to use Vim. It's built in with Vim. If you have any Linux distribution, if you have WSL with Debian or Ubuntu, you can just prompt this command and you'd have a practical session. You can do it as much times as you want. You need to master Vim because all of the three practical certifications rely heavily on Vim. You're going to copy paste a lot. You're going to edit the configurations of Vim. So if you invest in Vim early on, it's going to make your journey way easier because time is important, especially in the practical ones. And also, you cannot escape networking. This is a funny one, to be honest, because many people try to avoid networking, especially if you come from software engineering or software development background. It's a bit tough to understand networking. Usually, people who are very knowledgeable with networking are the people who are sysadmins. So to me, if I knew that I need to invest in networking when I got my CKS, I would have invested in it very early on because you're going to need it heavily, especially setting up network policies as well as dealing with Flannel and many other components within Kubernetes. Because basically, if you don't have kube proxy or you don't have a CNI, you cannot see anything within the cluster. Kubelet wouldn't share any metrics, and you cannot see anything through the kube API server. So the last one is a bit, I believe, controversial. It's a bit easier if you want to be a Kubestronaut to take all the exams closer together. It's going to be a tough journey because once you finish one exam, you want to rest a bit. But since all three, CKA, CKAD, and CKS are, I mean, they do share many of the content, a huge part of the content. I think taking them closer to each other is going to be a bit easier because, I mean, especially your readiness to take exams. Sometimes if you're prepared and you just finished one, it's a bit easier to take the other as you are already well aware of the environment and many other things because the exam proctor's platform, sometimes it changes between time to time. So if you take them closer together, it's gonna be a similar experience. And then I have two very, let's say, fun examples. The first one, a tree, and this is, I mean, imagine that you were on a vacation, then you got back and you found out that there's a tree obstructing your entrance. Um, so dealing with this issue, um, let's suppose that you don't have any prior experience into actually chopping or cutting trees. So the first thing you would do, if you have no prior experience, you would go to the kitchen and take a kitchen knife and you'd try to cut this tree. But what if I told you that there are other things, there are other tools to rely on trying to chop this tree? Because people are cutting trees for centuries, so there are proprietary tools for such things, or there are tools that are made to cut such challenges, such as trees. So you would try to use a kitchen knife to cut this one. And the kitchen knife in this example is just like a Kubernetes pod, which is the smallest deployable unit. What I'm trying to say here is that the pod serves a purpose, but it's a very generic purpose. You have deployments, you have stateful sets, you have daemon sets. These things, these Kubernetes resources rely on pods to deliver their values. Deployments, you can use deployments for, let's say, stateless applications, and you can use stateful set for stateful applications, and you can use daemon sets for other things like delivering metrics, etc. So in this example, you can use something very minimal, just like kitchen knife, but the value, you're going to struggle with it. You're going to take more time trying to cut this tree. So in this example, let's compare it to, let's say, someone who's well enough into Kubernetes documentation and well enough into actually having these 5 certifications. And this person would actually know what to use for what purpose. You're going to be able to differentiate between different workloads, and you're not going to rely on solving problems by using only one tool, such as the kitchen knife. What I'm trying to say is that, let's say 5 years ago, in my initial learning of Kubernetes, I would use pods for everything in Kubernetes. For deploying any container, I would use pods. Sometimes I don't have persistence of storage. So as I said, in this example, I wasted so much time trying to create everything using pods. If a pod gets killed, then that's it. I don't have any replication. I cannot scale it up or down. That's why you have different types, as I said. And the other example is actually a video game. Let's suppose that you're trying to start a new video game. You have a couple of ways into starting the actual game. You're going to balance between your experience into playing games as well as the theory. The theory part is, when you start a game, you usually are going to be welcomed with a guide. So usually you're going to skip this guide. But if I tell you that this game is not going to last for 1 hour, it might last for 100 hours. So then you're going to spend some time trying to understand some stuff. Or maybe you're going to skip the guide altogether. So then when you finish, let's say 30% of the game, and you find difficulties trying to bypass some challenges within the game, you would refer to the guide or YouTube videos trying to understand how to finish off this mission or the other mission. So you're going to go back to theory. First, you relied on your experience into games, general experience, and you might use some things in the wrong way, or you might use some things in a not very efficient way. So what I'm trying to say here is that usually when you try to overcome some challenges, you have your experience and you have your theory. If the platform or the challenge that you're facing is very small, let's say you're trying to learn Nginx Ingress, it's a small domain that only specializes in networking. So in this example, you can rely on your experience with a bit of theory to overcome the challenge that you're facing. But when we're talking about Kubernetes, it's a huge platform with networking, infrastructure, storage, and everything. There are many components within Kubernetes. So I would advise you to start by learning in a methodological way to actually have some value throughout your journey. Because let's say that you just learned Kubernetes the hard way. You tried to deploy everything yourself. You didn't try to rely on documentation. You're going to face many challenges in later stages in terms of trying to actually scale up. Sometimes you're gonna, maybe you face the case of trying to let's say block some traffic from a specific pod. You wouldn't know uh, how to overcome the challenge of limiting the access of traffic because you don't know about something called network policies. So what I would say is that Kubernetes is a huge platform that is worth investing on learning the theory behind it. And of course, you're gonna do some practical fun challenges, then you're gonna rely back on documentation. You're gonna cycle between the two. But what I'm saying essentially is that you need to invest in documentation and theory in learning Kubernetes. And of course, the practical examples and practical sessions that you're going to do are very essential to apply your theory knowledge. So back to now we finished this section. We're gonna go to the beef or the meat of the session, which is the 5 certifications. I'm gonna have this let's say template. I'm gonna speak about what course did I have? Do I recommend it or not? I'm gonna mention platform that this course is hosted on, and we're gonna talk about the practice, how to prepare for the exam, how to apply your knowledge. I'm gonna try to assess the difficulty of each one. And there's the scope. What I mean by scope is that how big the domain of the certification is. Sometimes it's a bit narrower in terms of actually the exam being focused on one area, and sometimes it's a bit expansive. And I'm going to speak about the timing. Is it going to be a factor? Is it going to be a challenge during the exam? And the last one, if there are any notes that are worth mentioning. So it's a bit controversial to actually start with these ones because this is the case. People sometimes start with CKA, then CKAD, then they go to CKS if they can. As of late, I believe people started to actually test their knowledge with KCNA. So my journey was CKA, CKS, then CKAD. So it was extremely easy for me after CKA and CKS. Then I went on to take KCNA and KCSA. First one is CKA. So I took the course of Mamshad Munambath. It's Certified Kubernetes Administrator with practice tests. I really recommend this course. It gets updated every once in a while. So it stays updated all the time, I would say. You can get the course either on Udemy or from CodeCloud, which is the actual official platform of CodeCloud, of the presenter, which is Mamshad Munambath, as I said. And then good thing is that this course has built-in labs, so you can apply your knowledge. You can as well go to Killer Coda, and Killer Coda is Kubernetes environment where you can have smaller environments to test some things you want to deploy some applications. I would say the difficulty of CKA is 6 out of 10. It's a moderate difficulty if you're prepared well, because there are easier questions and there are a bit of a tough questions. So I would say, as I said, it's a moderate difficulty. The scope is moderate as well because you're going to cycle between actually Linux as well as administrating Kubernetes itself. And you're going to understand when I go to the other ones, you're going to understand what I mean by saying the scope is moderate. Timing is fair, meaning that the timing is enough. But if you're faster, you're going to have more time to revise. If you're shorter, if you're slower, especially in Vim, you're going to have a difficult time. And then let's go to CKAD, which to me is the easier one. So the course that I recommend, I didn't take this one. It's by Mamshad as well from CodeCloud. I didn't take this one because I was, I think, well prepared. So I said, let's just get the exam. And it was actually easy for me because, as I said, I came from CKA and CKS. Your mileage may vary. You may start with CKAD, which is what I recommend. The platforms is similar to the first one, similar to CKA. You're going to have Udemy and CodeCloud. You can get the course in either of them. This is very similar to CKA. Scope is very similar. Difficulty is 4 out of 10. I would say that the exam is a bit easier compared to CKA, and it's a bit straightforward because you're not gonna actually debug some things within Kubernetes itself, you're going to just deploy applications within specific specifications. Scope is narrow, as I said, because you're going to only focus on trying to use Kubernetes as a user. You're going to deploy applications there. Timing, to me, it wasn't a factor. I actually lost around 40 minutes due to a disconnect. The exam is 2 hours. I still passed because uh, uh, there's not much debugging as opposed to CKA. So I would say this is easier. I mean, your mileage may vary. Don't take my word for granted. I believe that I actually recommend taking this one as a first, let's say, gate to Kubernetes world if you haven't started already, because it's a simpler one with a narrower scope. You have the toughest one, CKS. It's a bit challenging. Uh, so the course that I've taken was by Kim Mostkamp, which is the creator of Killer Shell. Um, I actually really recommend watching this guy works because this guy is very knowledgeable. You can learn a thing or two from his commands. He's very efficient in using Linux as well as Kubernetes. Um, I would say that the course doesn't cover CKS completely, but good thing is that the course is free now. It was previously hosted on Udemy. Now you can find it for free in YouTube. You can as well rely on Killer Coda for actually testing your knowledge. You're going to find many exercises, as well as playgrounds when you want to apply something that you have in mind. Difficulty is 9 out of 10. It's not impossible. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but as a relative difficulty compared to the rest of their certifications, I would definitely say this is the toughest because the scope is very wide. You're going to do many things. The challenging bit here is that usually in security, you cannot secure what you don't know. So you need to be very knowledgeable in CKA and CKAD to make your experience easier. If you're very knowledgeable, if you pass both two with flying colors, you're gonna be 60% ready. You're gonna be maybe surprised. Why did I say 60%? Why not 100% or even 90%? Because you're gonna rely on many other tools such as Falco for runtime security, as well as many others like Trivi, Claire for image scanning. You're gonna use AppArmor. You're gonna check out many other documentations outside of Kubernetes. So if you think that Kubernetes.io is easy to cycle through and read, you're going to spend so much time on the others to find what you want because the format of the other documentations are not as mature as Kubernetes. I would say that the timing is critical. It's a bit tough to finish with revision before the time is up because, as I said, it's a very wide topic. You're going to have some easy challenges to solve within the exam itself, but generally you need to know everything within the scope to actually try to do well enough. And you actually need to be well prepared because you're going to have a different challenge with KCSA. I'm going to speak about it in a bit. I would say that in notes that the practice is heavily recommended. As I said, I think that the course covers maybe 75 to 80% of the exam itself. Killer Shell as well is very similar in terms of actually the coverage. You're going to still be surprised of some of the challenges that you're going to face. So I would say that you need to, if you saw one topic, when you're studying, you see something that you're not well aware of, I would heavily recommend actually reading through that topic, such as I said, the other tools, AppArmor and Falco. You're going to have, you need to spend some time trying to deal with these components. Then you have KCNA. Many people are starting now, especially recently with KCNA, because it's a bit of a generic scope into CNCF as a whole and Kubernetes especially. I would say that Kubernetes is 50 to 60% of the course. The rest is about the rest of CNCF components. I took this course. It's found on YouTube. I would say that it's a pretty good course. I tried to apply my knowledge. It's a multiple choice exam, so it's a bit different. When I took my KCNA, I thought that I missed the practical exams because it's a bit of a straightforward experience. You know what you do. You don't get distracted between a choice or two. I would say that the difficulty is 4 out of 10. It's not tough, But sometimes, I mean, due to the scope being moderate or medium, um, you're going to find a tough time trying to understand some components, because sometimes you will be required to know something about, let's say, Argo CD, and sometimes you need to know about one component, what it does exactly. Sometimes you're going to be asked about, let's say, MTLS or some things within service mesh. So the scope is not straightforward. If you prepare well in the previous exams, this one will be so easy. Timing is not going to be a factor. It's a shorter time. It's an hour and a half, but you're going to have 60 questions. I believe timing is very sufficient. And last one is KCSA. This one is very challenging in terms of learning, not the exam itself. Meaning that when you try to attempt to learn something about KCSA, you're not going to find materials outside of the formal materials. So if you rely heavily on watching courses or learning from Udemy and the other, let's say, learning providers, you're going to have a bit of a tough time in this one. I believe this is as of now, because maybe after a month or two, uh, people will start to roll out courses regarding KCSA. So it could be easier then. Um, I would say that I didn't have any practice because there were none as of my time. I would say that it's a 6 out of 10 difficulty. It's not tough, but you actually know what you need to prepare for before the exam. The scope is very wide, similar to CKS. You need to learn, especially security tools within CNCF landscape. I would say that the timing is moderate. You're going to have enough time, but you're going to barely finish the exam. So coming well prepared would serve you with time. As I said previously, study materials are hard to find. It could be easier with the upcoming months. In the last section, I would speak about some notes regarding taking the exam itself before taking it, things that I would recommend personally. So people would buy vouchers when they see when let's say Cyber Monday comes and they see 50% off, they would buy a course or two or even all of them. I would say that you need to be realistic in terms of actually buying these vouchers, because the voucher is valid for only 1 year. And you just close your eyes and open it again, a whole year passes by. So be realistic, don't buy all five. I don't think that you can, I mean, you might have your time, but I think that you need to start the preparation, because learning is essential. You need to focus on learning. Certifications are the cherry on top. So the essential part is that actually you start learning. When you start learning, taking the exams wouldn't be an issue. The second point is that you need to invest in a webcam. Generally, in CNCF exams or any other exam, I use Logitech C920, which is the one that I'm using currently. I believe that it's spotless from my experience. I use it with Windows. You need to you need to actually get a proper webcam, because usually the built-in webcams, you would have a bit of a difficulty in terms of trying to actually uh, uh, capture your ID properly, because you're going to have focus issues, because most of the built-in webcams, they do not have autofocus. And you also, if you're going to use an external monitor, which is something that I heavily recommend, you need to use a 27-inch or above, because in the practical exams you'd have a small emulator. It's going to be a challenge to open documentation as well as a terminal or two. So as I said, if you have the built-in webcam, it's going to be a bit tough to manage having the webcam turned on as well as having the other screen, because usually you close up your laptop and rely on an external monitor, an external mouse, as well as an external keyboard. So actually having a dedicated webcam would make your experience easier, because you're going to be asked to show the environment that you're going to be taking the test from. And you're gonna move up the webcam a bit, so you need an external webcam. It's a good investment. Um, the last point is that if you want to have a glass of water, you need to actually have a transparent one. You need to have no labels in it, because I mean, this is the policy of the proctor. When I took my first exam, I wasn't prepared. I didn't have a transparent glass of water, so I didn't take any water during the exam. It's a general recommendation of usually how I prepare for each and every one of these exams. I believe that's it in terms of actually what I would recommend. As I said initially, it's a bit tough to actually focus on one area because you come from different background. I know many of you haven't started this journey yet. Many of you are software developers, and many of you are mobile application developers. So it's a bit of a, let's say, a, a far topic compared to your knowledge. So some of you are beginners in this one, some of you are experts. So it's a bit difficult to capture all the interests in one. But hopefully that I delivered something that is very valuable. Hopefully that you learned something or one thing or two regarding being Kubestronaut, and hopefully we see more Kubestronaut along the way, especially in the upcoming months. Especially that now I mean, Kubestronaut is a very hot topic. Everyone is talking about it, especially that we have as well a LinkedIn page that is dedicated about Kubestronauts, and we also have uh, a world map that has all the Kubestronauts in the world. So I believe this is the proper time to actually deliver something regarding Kubestronaut. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, hopefully I can answer some of them.
Once again, back to the session. So we can feel free to ask your questions, and if there is any issues regarding your microphone, then you can just text them on the chat.
I believe that there's a question by Shakti. Shakti said, we can use an external monitor and external webcam with a laptop lid closed. Yes, you can actually use an external monitor. The thing is that you need to have only one monitor running. You cannot have both the laptops as well as an external monitor. So you have your laptop lid closed and deal with the other monitor specifically. I believe you're going to follow this method throughout the whole experience with certifications. Please let me know if I didn't answer your question properly. Okay, regarding CKS, I would say that the course that I took is covering 75%. Mumshad Banambath has released a course. I think I would absolutely recommend it, especially that it's a recent one. I believe it would be more up to date as opposed to the one that was provided by Kim Ostcam. I would also advise on, I mean, when you start your CKS journey, you're gonna find some challenges, some areas that you didn't know before, such as I said, networking. So if you find that you have gaps either in Docker or networking, you need to satisfy these gaps before actually learning CKS. You need to, I believe, finishing off CKA as well as CKS before CKA and CKAD before CKS is recommended to focus on the other areas of CKS. I believe it's okay to give it a shot if you think you're prepared to take the exam. If you don't pass, you can have a retake. I don't know of anyone that passed CKS with the first try. So I mean, feel free to give it a shot if you're well prepared. Don't waste this opportunity if you're not well prepared. These study materials should be enough. I mean, if you finish off Killer Shell within time, then you're a superhero. So the exam would be easier for you. So you can assess your knowledge by having you have 2 Killer Shell sessions, so you might give it a shot and assess your knowledge. And as I said, if you have any gaps, you need to fulfill them. I know some of them are a bit tough, especially networking, because networking varies between Kubernetes and many other networking areas, especially the ones provided by, let's say, vendors. They're not open source like Cisco and many other providers. It's a bit tough to know about networking of Kubernetes outside of Kubernetes, but hopefully you're going to find something to rely on, or you can use Kubernetes materials themselves, just like, as I said, the course of Code Cloud. I believe it should prepare you well enough.
Yeah, we have two more questions asked in Q&A. You can have a
Okay.
look at Q&A session. Uh, One from Arsalan. For junior DevOps engineer, which certificate we should go for first or focus on?
I would say CKAD. As I said during the presentation, CKAD is not overwhelming. You're going to learn the resources of Kubernetes one by one. It's a good way to start, especially trying to use Kubernetes itself instead of actually administrating Kubernetes. So definitely CKAD, then CKA, then CKS if you are trying to get Kubestronaut. And the rest of the two, KCNA, KCSA, uh, I would prefer to have them after I finish off with Kubernetes because of the scope, as I said earlier. It's a bit easier to focus on specific areas than you try to expand from these areas. Okay, the advantage of CKAD, you're going to have a couple of domains that are not covered with CKA. I would say Helm is not mentioned at all within CKA. You're going to also deal with stateful sets a bit more. To me, I mean, it's easy to get CKAD after CKA. If you're a Kubernetes user, you're going to optimize your workloads, you're going to optimize your deployments because CKA is not that valuable for, let's say, people who are dealing with Kubernetes as a managed service. It's valuable for people who are administrating on-prem Kubernetes, relying on open source tools like Kubespray and many other tools like kubeadm. Um, so I would say that if you want to cover all areas and deliver the deliverables of development in a seamless way, CKAD is going to be important. Okay, Ibrahim Al-Imran asked a question regarding CCNA and CCNP and a comparison as opposed to Kubernetes certifications. To be honest, I was aiming to finish these certifications before actually attempting to give this presentation. But I also tried to, I mean, I have RHCA in my mind. I want to have a perspective to compare these certifications. I'm not sure if I can deliver any value to you. I'm not sure if I can answer anything regarding difficulty, but the rule of thumb is that if you deal with Kubernetes on a daily basis, if you administer Kubernetes, then CKA is not going to be tough. If you also use Kubernetes, CKAD is not going to be tough, especially if you use it on a daily basis. The challenge is going to come when you don't actually deal with Kubernetes at all in your daily basis. You're going to be presented with many concepts. That's why I said incorporate your learning on your daily basis. I mean, I think it's part of your development. The worst thing that you can do is when you go to work trying to achieve something or do something specifically, then you get welcomed with a backlog, a huge backlog of operations tickets, and you get distracted doing some operations stuff. So learning should be part of your day. If you incorporate it, all of these certifications would be easier. You're gonna spend maybe a month or two actually finishing one certificate, but I would recommend actually doing this because, as I said, you close your eyes and then open them the next day. It's a completely different year. Okay, Muhammad Idris asked a question regarding. Okay. Uh, okay. I wouldn't say that there's a specific challenge. The most challenging one is CKS. You finish off CKS, then I believe you're done. I would share one funny story. So I didn't know actually about Kubestronaut that it includes KCSA. I thought that Kubestronaut is a small program that that focuses on the 4 certifications. I thought it's only CKA, CKAD, CKS, as well as KCNA. I didn't know about KCSA. Maybe I was a bit busy, maybe because it was Ramadan, so my commute wasn't that long, so I didn't have to listen to Kubernetes podcast. So when I learned about Kubestronaut, it was Wednesday. After maybe 48 hours or a bit more than 48 hours, I got KCNA and KCSA. So I got them in less than, let's say, 26 hours. So I had them actually back to back. So I wouldn't say that I faced many challenges because, as I said, I finished all 3 before. But back to your question, the most challenging bit is CKS. I mean, it was frustrating experience, in especially some of the areas, because you need to deal with low level stuff such as runtime security, Falco, App Armor, and many other things outside of Kubernetes itself. Okay,
We
Abdullah
have
asked a
one more
question
question.
regarding the commitment. Sorry.
We have one more question. For CKs, do I
Okay.
need to study various types of cybersecurity attacks before taking exam?
Okay, I would say that the materials that are within CKS, the courses that you're going to find are, I would say, enough if you understand everything, if you apply your knowledge. Uh, Cybersecurity is a very wide subject. It's found everywhere. So it's a bit tough to capture it all in one, let's say, domain. But the security part of Kubernetes, I believe it's covered well in the courses. So you should be good to go. I mean, I finished all five, and I need a lot more to learn, especially regarding the low level stuff, the components of, let's say, kubeproxy, dealing with CNIs, Flanner or Calico. I faced challenges last week or the week before regarding the CNI, and once you have a networking issue, you basically don't see anything within the cluster itself. So it's a bit frustrating to actually try to fix these issues. So I still have a lot more to learn. I believe all of the Kubestronauts, or most of them, still have a lot more to learn regarding Kubernetes. So it's never ending experience. uh, you're gonna cover just enough to be prepared for the exam. You're gonna take the exam, and you're gonna have your certificate, and then you're gonna go on with your learning experience. It's a never-ending experience. And one funny thing, if you have one of your five certifications expired, you're gonna lose your Kubestronaut badge. So you need to keep them all uh, uh, in a validity, let's say, way. Abdullah asked, sorry, regarding the study. As I said, it's extremely challenging to go back from work and open some course and try to understand something because you're already exhausted. It's a bit challenging to have it during the weekends because you're going to be exhausted from 5 weeks of working, 5 days of working. So what I'm saying is that you need to incorporate it in your daily basis. I know it sounds like utopia. I know that this is challenging to have every day, but this is the proper way to learn. I mean, I didn't do this. I did it to in some of the challenges that I faced, some of the certifications. But if I would do it again, I would have it uh, in a very structured way. Let's say 15 to an hour a day until I finish. Then I'm going to be focusing heavily, especially before taking the exam itself. Uh, I had days where I would study every day, especially for CKS, and I had days where I would spend 15 to 1 hour. So if you have 15 hours a day, it's better than actually spending uh, 5 months procrastinating, studying, as opposed to small bits every day that eventually you're gonna have something at least. Fahad asked a question regarding, okay. Okay, this is the question I believe that you mentioned previously. I think I answered this one. Um, Regarding cybersecurity attack, let me focus on this point. I think that you have a very structured method to secure up your applications regarding CKS. I think it's like 1, 2, 3 steps that you're gonna follow, and hopefully you're gonna be doing well enough. Uh, I believe that trying to secure applications is a very generic subject, but the most valuable certification of all of them is, of course, CKS. If you apply these, let's say, aspects, if you have, let's say, Falco, or you have the whole SysTech ecosystem, as well as network policies, and you control everything. You don't allow privilege escalation. You don't allow root privileges to each container. I believe you're going to be doing well enough in terms of security. And you can also have Kubebench to assess with the security of the cluster itself. There are many tools regarding security within Kubernetes. Uh, I mean, if you just cycle through CKS materials, you're going to learn a lot.
We have one more question from Fatima.
Okay.
That is, Do you suggest any books that may cover most of the certificates? Is there any books
Sorry.
that is there any book that suggests most of the certificates? Is what
I
she had
believe that
asked.
there is a formal one from Linux Foundation. To be honest, I didn't go through it, but you're gonna find it in all certification. If you want to buy any one of them, you can have it bundled with them. To be honest, I didn't, as I said, go through it. I always refer back to Kubernetes documentation. So there's another question regarding the differences between OpenShift Red Hat certifications and CKA. As I said, when I mentioned RHCA, I would have loved to have experience with Red Hat certifications. I have experience with OpenShift, ODF, Quay, as well as the previous registry that they have had. I know the issues of OpenShift back in 2021 because my experience was during that time. I'm not sure about the certifications themselves. I've actually tried to look for people who hold both or all of these certifications to give their assessment. I didn't find any. So I don't think that there are people with RHCA and Kubestronaut. Maybe there are people, but I still didn't find anyone to ask regarding this question. So I don't have actually knowledge regarding them. I believe that the exams are a bit longer within Red Hat domain. You're going to have 3 hours or even 4 hours of exams. But I believe that the study materials are covered in a better way as opposed to uh, let's say Kubernetes, because Kubernetes you're gonna rely on third-party, let's say providers, as I said, Code Cloud, as well as the other courses to actually um, do well in Kubernetes exams, as opposed to Red Hat having their own learning platform. Okay, regarding Kubestronaut and the effect on the, let's say, daily work and career in general, I believe that it has its uh, I mean, it's something to show off, of course. Uh, Sometimes in, let's say, in a governmental sector, it's going to be a bit tough to actually show what does it mean to be a Kubestronaut. Some people don't even know what CKA is, let alone Kubestronaut. But I believe that actually being active in the community itself would expose you to many opportunities. To be honest, as I said initially, I would try to make you all focus on learning rather than the certifications themselves. They are the cherry on top. It's an added benefit. It's good that it's there because it's going to force you to learn. You're going to finish these courses to achieve something. But the learning, it's the learning part itself is what's going to make you, let's say, exposed to the market way more. Because in our domain, especially in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, uh, it's a small domain, small, very low amount, low number of people that are in this specific area of DevOps, SRE, etc. So the word of mouth, the knowledge of people, your social relationships in this domain, it's going to help way more as opposed to actually being just a Kubestronaut. But to me, it's more of a validation of skills rather than actually using it to get a specific opportunity or another opportunity. If you want to, if you want to expose yourself to certifications where it's maybe going to guarantee you or going to expose you to some opportunities, usually you're going to limit yourself to cloud providers such as AWS as well as GCP. I believe that they require, I mean, it's an added benefit to them. It's a plus. You're going to be promoted based on these certifications, but I don't recommend being actually close to a specific vendor or cloud provider. The benefit of these certifications are it's not vendor locked. Kubernetes is used everywhere. If you become a Kubestronaut, it's a, I mean, Kubestronaut is something, but it's going to help you. For example, in OpenShift, uh, they're a bit different, but many components are the same. The differences to me is that, for example, OpenShift, it has many of the uh, let's say add-ons of Kubernetes already built in, as I said, just like ODF, because for example Kubernetes doesn't support a proper storage solution. I mean, the storage bit of the whole Kubestronaut journey is not covered well, you still are going to struggle with the storage, especially with persistent applications, stateful applications. Uh, so you're gonna still have a lot to learn after being a Kubestronaut. But to answer your question, I believe that it's something to hold on, to show off. Maybe we're gonna have more recognition, especially during the upcoming months or years. Uh, it's still a hot topic, as I said. I mean, it started in the past April, so it's only 3 months now. So it's going to take time, I believe, to have its validity uh, in our market. But learning Kubernetes is a very good example because you're going to learn many things in only one platform. You're going to have to deal with, as I said previously, infrastructure, storage, networking, containerization, and many other aspects. So learning Kubernetes would not limit you to knowing how to deal with Kubernetes. You're going to learn many things during the journey. I believe that's it. Okay, we have one more question. Okay. Yes, I answered maybe half of your question. I would recommend getting CKAD. I don't think that you need CKA, but once you start learning CKAD, after you finish getting CKAD, maybe you'd switch, you'd have a career switch. Many people who were in your position have had this switch. So, I mean, it's not guaranteed. Kubernetes is a fun domain, but essentially, to be honest, you need to give CKAD a shot. Uh, you're gonna, I mean, dealing with development as well as actually deploying these applications. So the DevOps team, as well as, let's say, development team, they would absolutely have to work closely to deliver value, a business value. So you preparing your requirements to the DevOps team, let's say, would make things easier between you two. You'd understand their requirements, and you're going to tailor your development workflows to align with their requirements. I would recommend CKAD. It's a very fun experience. Hello, Muhammad. Is it a question? Uh, I'm not sure, to be honest. Do you mean the transition between these domains? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I mean, usually people who are within the DevOps domain, they're usually from either development backgrounds or let's say sysadmin backgrounds, Linux administration backgrounds. So usually they vary in terms of their knowledge skills, but usually the shift happens between these two, coming to this, let's say, domain, whatever it's called, maybe DevOps, maybe SRE, maybe platform engineering. This topic is still not settled. It's way more controversial than it's supposed to be. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. We can let's say translate platform engineering into many different topics. So it's a bit tough to. I mean, it's a bit tough to relate some specific, let's say, naming to a specific domain, because our domain is way too big. There are people who are only specializing in observability. I mean, it's valid to call them SREs, and there are people who are working in every step of the journey, from taking the applications themselves until they're deployed and maybe retired. I think that's it. Thank you all for joining. I've had a good time. I appreciate that you made the time to join in here, and hopefully that this is one of, let's say, a long, let's say, journey of actually communicating with the community. You can join in the WhatsApp group of CNCF Riyadh. We can all communicate together, especially in such domain. I believe we're going to have meetings, actual meetings, to be, let's say, well communicated together, especially that this domain is way too small. We're not many people. So having communication between each other, especially in I mean, we face many challenges daily regarding actually solving issues because the domain is way too big. So having a specific platform, just like the WhatsApp channel that we have, uh, resolves many of the issues that we face. Thank you. Appreciate it. See you, inshallah, in one of the upcoming sessions.
Okay, so
Thank
hope
you.
you all had a wonderful session, and I'm sure you all got enough insights from our experienced speaker, Saleh. I thank Saleh for coming for us and
Thank you.
talking for us and taking this wonderful session in the name of CNCF Riyadh. And let
Thank
me
you.
say something. After this session, you all will be getting a feedback email. Please do fill it, and we would love to hear from you. In addition, you could reach us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Please find the link in the chat box. So, hope to meet you people soon with another technical topic discussion. Thank you. And thank you all for joining once again.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
see you.
Okay.